Hi, good evening and welcome to Whisky Without the Guff, episode 16. This episode's a little different in that it's not exactly driven by whiskey, it's driven more by process. We've got Judy and Larry here tonight, and Larry's brother likes whiskey, and he knows that Judy and Larry are involved in my vlog here about whiskey. So every so often he's drinking a different whiskey and he'll communicate with Judy and say, oh, you know, I'm drinking Talisker, blah, blah, blah. And Judy in turn will come to me and go, have you ever heard of Talisker? And I go, yeah. And that leads into a conversation. So this time she wanted to drink more peaty whiskey and learn about peat. When I got thinking about this and planning for this, I thought to myself, you know, I think there's a whole lot of people that don't understand this peat and what it means, and it's almost like we take peat and stick it into the whiskey, which isn't the case at all. So I thought I would explain a wee bit about peat. In addition to that, I can't really do that without talking about how you make whiskey. So I'm going to talk about that first, and then peat, and then finally what we mean by peated whiskies, and we'll get into tasting a few of them and we'll see the results. So starting with making whiskey, if you were going to make Scotch whiskey, single malt Scotch whiskey, the first thing you need is a nice constant supply of clean fresh water. So if you go to a distillery, what you'll notice is it's almost always right beside a nice wee clean stream or something, and they go to extraordinary lengths to protect that water and its integrity. For example, what you don't want is a dead sheep in the water just upstream over the hill from where you can see. So they tend to buy the land way up there. And now then you need yeast. I'm not going to talk about yeast, but you're going to need yeast to take the sugars out of something and put them into alcohol. Now that something in Scotch whisky is barley. Barley is all it is. Now it's not, I shouldn't say Scotch whisky, single malt Scotch whisky. It's barley, and that's all it is. So barley, I'm going to put pictures up here so you can see what, you know, barley looks like. So you take a field of barley, you harvest that barley, get rid of all the stalks and everything, and then what you want to do, whiskey's not made with barley, it's made with malted barley. So what's malted barley? Well, most distilleries, the old ones, tend to have a thing called a malting floor, and it's typically on the second floor or higher up in the distillery building. Big white hall, a lot of pillars, a lot of sort of old wood, and they take this barley and they spread it around the floor, depths about that, or maybe a little deeper, and then they water it. And what happens when they water it? Well, it starts to germinate. So there's guys up there sort of keeping it moist and everything, and those rooms are not cold. They're not horribly warm either, but they're not cold. Tend to be stuffy more than anything. And so the barley germinates, and they let it germinate for a period of time. I think the reason for this is because that brings out more of the things in the barley that they want to use in their whiskey production. But at some point they want to stop it germinating, and the way they do that is to heat it. And once they've heated it, they heat the floor, not the barley. And then once it's stopped germinating, they grind it into a sort of barley flour. So what actually goes into the distillery for the production process is like flour. It's like barley dust, if you like. Now, how do they heat it? Well, they heat it with peat. Why peat? And I mean, nowadays you could make an argument, but originally I think this started because people use peat to burn. It tends to burn real well, and that's how they heated their homes. Whenever they needed something to stop germination, they thought, oh, we need some heat. How do we get heat? Yeah, we burn peat. Now, why peat? Well, because Scotland's full of peat. if you go hiking in Scotland, anywhere you go, there's peat bogs. It's basically a bog, and it's made up of millions and millions of years of decayed heather, little wildflowers, bushes, trees, sticks, whatever, gorse, you know, sitting in sort of moisture and getting compressed because next year's heather grows on top, and you know, then next year's gorse grows on top of that, and so on. So over a period of millions of years, you get this compressed stuff. No longer looks like flowers or heather or trees or anything. It looks like mostly mud. And what they do is they go in there. They've got special spades for this, and they take off the top cover, and it just looks like clay or mud. And you'll see some pictures here that show this. And they dig there, and then they bring out these peat briquettes, and they're about that long, and about that deep, and about that wide. I mean, it's not an exact science, but that's sort of the thing they found best. So what they do is they stack them, you know, so they're digging down here, and they stack those up on top, and they arrange them like a crib, or like a sheave, the way they would stack wheat, and they let the wind, there's always wind there, so the wind blows through them and it dries them off, and that's the objective of the exercise. So it's cheap, it's readily available, there's lots of it, like for example in Islay, which is a big peaty Scotch place. There are no trees. There's constant wind coming off the Atlantic. So if there ever were trees, there's none anymore. And so if you're going to burn something, peat would be a natural. Although there's peat all over Scotland. But you know, if you look at it, the Islay, Jura, I'll show you where those are. There's Islay, there's Jura, Campbellton, so Springbank, say. And then up in Skye for Talisker. I mean, they've sort of traditionally done very peaty whiskies. So you take the peat and you burn it underneath the malting floor. It dries everything off, and inevitably some peat smoke is coming up. Peat's a very smoky kind of fire. It's not a sort of clean fuel, if you like. So you get the smoke coming up, and originally I think they just did this to heat the barley and stop it germinating. Inevitably though, people noticed that there's a sort of smoky flavour to this from the peat. And so now it's become a science. Now they don't just dry it using peat. They deliberately put the peat smoke through there to try and adhere to the barley. So when you make Scotch, when somebody says, oh, this is very peaty, it's not that somebody put peat in the spirit. Rather, it's the smoke that adhered to the barley and made it through the whole process, and still you can sense that smoke. And so that's what we mean when we say, oh, it's a very peaty, it's got a lot of that sort of peat fire smoke smell to it and taste to it. Anyway, here we are with Judy and Larry, who you've seen before. And tonight we're doing peat. Not so much peaty whiskies, although they're all peaty whiskies. But Judy wanted to know some more about peat, so that's what we're drinking. So the first one here is Talisker from Skye. And Talisker, it's a Talisker 10, it's about 45–46% alcohol by volume. So these ones, maybe it's just because I like alcohol in my whiskey, these are all kind of like 100 proof. Actually, 3 of them are over 100 proof. So,
number one.
Without further ado, try Talisker.
Okay.
So that's
here's number one.
Okay, I'll
take this one.
So you can smell it right away, and you can smell sort of. It manifests itself like smoke.
It does. It does smell like that.
It's nice.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the definite takeaway from this is peaty.
It's
Yes.
peaty.
Whoa.
So if you ever wanted to know what peat means in whiskey, get a Talisker or any of these others, and the instant reaction is, oh, you know you're drinking something.
Absolutely.
No, you might not like it, but you asked for peat.
I did.
You got peat.
Yes.
Guys who drink whiskey for a long time tend to gravitate towards liking peat. People who are drinking whiskey for the first time, when you get them something that's peaty, the reaction is kind of like, "Ooh, God, no, I don't like that." They're looking for something sweeter, gentler or something.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Oh, I thought I
That's
finished
Talisker.
it. I didn't finish it.
and that's a 10-year-old Talisker. Now we're going to go down to Islay, and we're going to stay in Islay for the duration. So the next one
Okay.
is actually Lagavulin, and this is a fairly complex Lagavulin. It's a 12, and it's one of those unusual drinks. Lagavulin 16 is probably the stock and trade whiskey, and that's 4 years older than the 12. But the 12 has a better reputation, and it's a
Okay.
lot more expensive than the 16. So,
Really?
yeah.
12
So-
is more than the 16.
Yeah. So,
That's your number 2.
Yes, thank you. That guy smell.
so
this is
instantly a different
milder.
smell.
Yes.
Well, yeah, you're going to learn quite a lot in this wee tasting in terms of mild and not mild, but I like this one.
This one burns the throat a little bit.
No, the other one did.
No, this not for me. This one does.
Oh, you're right.
Am I
That's
right?
one of the yes. That's one of the things you can learn is that.
Oh,
Told you.
yes.
I
you're
told
right.
you.
And you see, it keeps going.
It does
It
keep
keeps
going.
going.
But when you
Oh,
accept that, so if you were looking for a milkshake, you know instantly you're not getting a milkshake.
No.
So if you constantly want to strive to taste a milkshake, you're going to be disappointed in this. If, however, you say, "Oh, I know what that's like," and you learn to appreciate
Right.
that for what it is. It's a very complex drink.
It is.
It keeps on giving. I think
Yeah,
it's a
it
beautiful
does.
drink.
is it something you would really want to have, like, before dinner or after dinner?
See, I'm Scottish.
during dinner?
We don't do dinner. We
They just drink.
we just drink.
They don't worry about food.
No, yeah, we'll have-
And it smells
look at the
so
food.
mild.
here's the proof. You know how sometimes if people are away, like when you guys are in Cabo or something,
Okay.
you know, and you might say, "What do you fancy tonight?" Now it might be Mexican, but you hear people
Yeah.
say Italian or Greek or something. What you never ever hear anybody say is Scottish.
That's right.
No, there's a very good reason for that because it's mostly rubbish and it's all deep
Oh.
fried. But anyway, that's Lagavulin 12.
Ooh,
I like
I
it.
can feel it down here.
Yes, yeah, you feel it all
All the way down. Yes.
So it's not something that you would drink more than one
Well,
an
you wouldn't
evening.
make an evening out
Yes,
of
you
it.
would.
You would?
You would?
Well,
Okay.
you wouldn't, but those of us who like this stuff would.
Okay.
Yes. In fact, we seek it out and do that deliberately.
Really?
Yeah. Now the next one,
I'm burning down here. I
Yeah.
can feel it.
well, that's a peaty kind of.
Yeah.
You kind of expect heat with peat.
Yes.
Even rhyme.
And you can feel it,
Yeah.
yes.
Now the next one used to be the most peaty Scotch by design.
On purpose.
On purpose, and that's what happens when you have chemists make your whiskey. So this is a Bill Lumsden, it's out of Ardbeg, and it's called Ugadal. Now you've
Ugadal.
tasted this before.
We
have.
did,
okay.
yes.
You did, and you both
Okay.
liked it.
Yes.
But this will put it in a different context for you. Before that time you were just drinking Ardbegs. So here you're drinking something different. But Ugadal is a... To me, it's a much more complex drink than it appears like. So starting with the smell.
It's even different than the other two, for sure.
Yeah, but not only that, but it seems fairly mild. Eh? Like,
Yes.
So we taste it.
but see, you'll see in a minute, And we go to the fourth one, that these things are misleading. But Ugadal, it's one of those things that it is mild and it doesn't taste fierce.
Mm-hmm.
And it keeps on giving and giving and giving.
Oh, that's very smooth.
Should you swish it around in your mouth a
Yes.
bit before you swallow it?
I didn't
Yeah.
swish, I
Yes.
just
Well,
swallowed
it
it.
doesn't matter, but you see
But that's
how
a
it's-
lot,
Yeah.
that's not burning like the other
No,
one.
but you can see the
burns
heat
your
though. It's a
mouth
more
a bit.
sense, it's a more subtle
It
form
is.
of heat.
Mm-hmm.
And it keeps going and going and going.
It is.
Ugadal's very nice.
It is nice. Good
I shouldn't tell you what to think. I mean, you get to think what you think. But Ugadal is 54.2%. So that's 100 and maybe 110 proof. Now the fourth one, I wanted to do this.
You alright?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I wanted to do this. The fourth one is Port Charlotte. Now this, to me, this is like an ultimate peat experience. Insofar as, from the smell, you know you're getting peat.
Not
But
this
as
one.
soon as you taste this, it's hot from the get-go, and it stays hot. Now it's a kind of raw heat. It's not like Ugadal is subtle heat.
Mhm.
It's warmth without burning. Poor old Port Charlotte's the opposite of that. Port Charlotte is, as you'll see when you taste this, instant. Oh my God!
Really.
Like my mouth's on fire and it stays that way for a while.
And
No,
yet
it's good. I like it.
right.
It smells very mild.
Well, it smells mild compared to these guys. If you were just to smell this just cold,
So
it's nice.
you'll
Easy to-
be taken
it's
by
easy to
surprise,
swallow.
is it?
It's not burning my throat like the other one was.
no, and that's because
Oh,
of the
you're
other
right.
ones.
I like that.
It's nice.
But you feel it
Yes.
keeping going.
Yes.
Keeping going. So you have to choose what you're going to drink whiskey with fairly carefully, because if you just went cold into this Port Charlotte, you'd think, oh my God, boom. But because you've just had Ugadal and just had Lagavulin, see, it's still there.
I think I like this the
I can't
best.
believe I finished mine before you.
Yeah. I think I like this one the
Yeah,
best.
it's nice. It's smooth.
Well, it's
But I'm
the
certainly not a
cheapest.
connoisseur.
It's the
It's
cheapest.
the cheapest.
so
Well,
that's a good thing to
I
like.
usually choose the most expensive.
So
but
which of
cheapest
those did
is
you
fine.
like the best?
Number 4.
Number 4.
Yeah, I'd say
that's
number
Port
4
Charlotte.
also.
Number 4 smelled the mildest, and it didn't burn me.
No, same with me.
And so the other ones that I chose were the ones that burned a little bit more.
I'm getting some
But-
after effects.
But
burning.
the taste was all very different in all of them. But I really preferred number 4.
Yes.
Good. So my preference was Ugadal first,
Which one was Ugadal? Number
the third one.
number
the
3.
third one.
Okay.
And then Lagavulin, 12. And then Port Charlotte, and finally the Talisker.
So we all have different palates
Exactly.
that absorb.
It also
That's
depends on the night and
Yeah, I
the
guess.
mood you're in. and
Depends on a
Yeah,
lot of
I
things.
guess.
what you're having with it. Like
Yes.
if I had said, okay, we'll have a, you guys preferred the Port Charlotte, but if I'd said, okay, we're going to start with Bowmore and do a few other things, and throwing Port Charlotte in there, say if I'd thrown Port Charlotte in as number 1,
Oh,
your reaction would be different.
Yes.
You're right.
No, it might be different, it might not.
But it might be.
But
You're
that's
right.
the lovely thing about whiskey. One of the
Yes.
lovely things is that you can, you know, it's an exploration. And it's fun. You get good company and you get
Yes.
good conversation
It's
and
great.
you
That's
get
right.
Yes.
some whiskies. But so those are all peaty. So you've had a peat
They were
experience.
nice.
That's great.
Yes.
And we'll send it. I send it to my son, Cam, because he loves to see what you're doing with this scotch. So
Most of the time I'm just lying there by myself, you know, drooling and stuff.
Don't forget, you're on camera there.
That's okay. I see. That's the beautiful
he
thing.
can edit it
Will that
out.
get to YouTube?
No, that's
No.
yes, but that's the
Yes.
beautiful thing about being Scottish. See, you've got no standards to live up to.
Oh,
It's a tremendously
you're Scottish,
freeing.
you're allowed to
It's a
drink all you
freeing
want.
thing. It's expected.
Yes.
You're expected to be a
That's right.
savage. You know, if you weren't, people would look at you kind
That's
of
right.
peculiar and like, what the hell's the matter with him? So, fantastic. And you want to say or comment or whatever?
Thank you very much for
Oh,
having us.
Thank you.
It was nice.
We love doing these tastings, and we're learning
Looking
something.
forward to the next one.
And I'm always watching them.
Good.
I am.
That I should just say for the sake of the world at large, when Ugadal by design was made peaty.
Okay.
That was also a very cleverly made whiskey because it's delicious, I think. But until Jim McEwen, see, Ugadal was pushing the boundaries of how much phenols or something you could get into the spirit. And Jim McEwen at Bricklady said, yeah, rubbish. So he took on like a challenge, and he made something called Octomore. And Octomore, I've never tasted it, but it not only, it didn't just go, okay, there's close to 100%, would go 100, you know, 102 or something. It went like, so
Wow.
Octomore is the prettiest thing ever bottled.
Wow.
Now, I've never tasted it because I don't know what his initial selling price was, but it's selling now at $400 or $600 a bottle. I just won't pay that.
Can you buy it here?
You can probably buy it, but not in a store. You'd have to go online and everything
Wow.
like that.
Okay.
But to me, that's one of the beauties of you can't do this here. But when I go on my little whiskey pilgrimage to Scotland, you can go in a whiskey bar in Glasgow and say, oh, you know what? Instead of paying the $2,000 for a 25-year-old Macallan, you can say, I'll have a shot of a 25-year-old
Yeah.
Macallan. Oh, I'd like to try that Octomore.
You gave
You know.
me the name of previously you gave me the name of a bar there that has about 300 different brands of scotch. or
Well, at least
something.
300. I would
Right.
say that the minimum is about 400.
Okay.
Yeah, there's
So
a few.
when they would give you a shot of the scotch that you wanted, they wouldn't charge you the way they charge you here.
Oh, they charge you.
They
The
charge you
Scotch,
the normal
But not-
price,
Yeah,
right?
you'd pay money, but you wouldn't pay. You wouldn't have to buy all the grams in the bottle. Is the point.
Okay.
No, just
So
one
you-
taste.
Yes.
Yes.
And so you get to taste it.
Yes.
Without
Yes.
forking out $2,000 or $3,000.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And if you like it, you go buy yourself a bottle.
You'd have to like it
Maybe.
a lot.
Mortgage your house.
Great.
Anyway,
Okay.
thank you very much indeed, and
Oh, thank
we'll
you.
see you next
It
time.
was
Thank
great.
you for having
Thank
us. That was great.
We're going downstairs to drink now. So that was very interesting, and I personally learned a great deal. If you look at the results here, Judy and Larry both voted for Port Charlotte, but for the opposite reasons to why people voted for Port Charlotte last time. Port Charlotte, the last time people thought, oh, that's really fiery, it's really good, This time, they liked it because it was mild. And of course, the whiskey hasn't changed. It's not suddenly gotten mild. So I've learned that I think the order of these whiskies is absolutely pivotal when you're dealing with very strong, heavily peated whiskies. In my case, for instance, I voted for Ugadal. But really, in any given moment, I could have gone with Lagavulin 12 or Ugadal or Port Charlotte. So I think the order is a bit misleading. This is one case where guys who just test one bottle or taste one bottle and nothing else have it all over me. So all good. I think I wouldn't have voted for the Talisker, but I could have voted for any of the other three. If you look, most of them are over 100 proof. Just double these ABV numbers. If you look at the cost of them though, the Port Charlotte again is best tasting voted, and it's also the best value, $56 for this. It's incredible. The Uigeadail, lovely drink, and so is the Lagavulin 12. I mean, these three are exemplary. They're beautiful drinks, and I think you saw the reaction of Judy and Larry to the Lagavulin 12. I think they were actually kind of taken with it at first, but I think it's a bit too strong to take on mass. I don't think people, especially people who don't drink Scotch very much. So that was the results of that. Next week we'll be doing something completely different. We're going to talk about paraphernalia. What do I mean by paraphernalia? I mean all the accoutrements that come with drinking and tasting Scotch. So in the meantime, get out and drink. Please give us a like, subscribe if you're not already a subscriber.